Hi, drawing students. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at the video about 1 and 2 point perspective, and that you've had a chance to practice a page of boxes if you're new to perspective and you haven't done this before, or if you need a little review or a little refresher. So as I mentioned in the video from the previous week, what we want to do is have a building where the corner is closest to us so that you have 2 points. And we created the drawing, and what I've done is I've transferred, and I use the vanishing points on my drawing, so here and here, and I took some graphite transfer paper and I slid it. I taped the preliminary drawing down and I slid the graphite transfer paper under it, and I went over everything with a red ballpoint pen. And the reason I use a ballpoint pen is because it has that metal tip, and it will give enough pressure to transfer the drawing. The red just tells me that I haven't forgotten any one place. So I've got this this drawing transferred. This is the reference. The next step is going to be to add graphite to it to make it a finished product. And as we've done in the past, we want to eliminate all the outlines when we're done so that it looks like that it's a little more photographically real. So you're going to bring values up to the edge, so it's value against value. And by value, I mean a dark or light tone. And eventually kind of eliminate all of the outlines like we did when we were doing the forms. And then you can add details such as trees or clouds or grass and so on, scenery items. This is one that a high school kid did where they had an assignment to draw and shade either a city scene, a building, or a maze or castle. And you can see he's got, or she has got, all the values: the dark, the middle, the light, and so on. And that's what you want to be doing. Nice smooth values, kind of having the value go right up to the edge of the outline. Here's another little example. If you're doing sky, it's kind of a nice way to do it is to take a tissue and wrap it around your finger and take some graphite on another piece of paper, and then just create the sky value, and then you can go in with a kneaded eraser and erase out clouds if you wanted to. The eraser becomes a really important tool. Both the squishy eraser, the regular pink or white eraser, the click eraser, so you could go in and lift out some texture on the side of the building, or even the electric eraser, which is really fun. Not everybody has that, but it's great to get really clean lines. Okay. And then I mentioned in a previous class the powdered graphite, which is great to have. If you don't have it, another alternative is to take a dark graphite, like a 6B, or a graphite stick is wonderful, and you can find those in the art stores or online, and make your little palette, and this is your paintbrush. So you load your tissue up and create your values that way, then get a nice smooth value. The other alternative is to use the powdered graphite, if you have some. Dip your tissue right in it, and it's very powdery, so you want to first put it on your extra paper, and then you can go in and put it on your actual drawing. Okay. Somebody mentioned in class making your own powdered graphite, and you could do that if you want. Take a pencil or a graphite stick and a matte knife, and you can carefully just kind of shave a little bit in it. Don't do it on a white linen tablecloth because it will have a tendency to spread all over the place, but you could create a little bit of your own powdered graphite if you don't already have some. I am going to find the lid to this so I don't knock it over. Now also, as you work and you're using your pencil and so on, the side of your hand will get full of graphite. So it's a nice idea to have a little protector paper, which I have somewhere here. And if I don't, I will grab another one. And just something to keep your hand off, and your oils from your skin off of your drawing paper. Okay, so let's get started. I can see that this side of the building is at least 40% darker than that side. So one thing I can do is start with a dark value all over all of these textures. Now the problem might be that I may end up covering up my drawing, and that happened in my watercolor demo. I'm doing exactly the same painting or the same drawing, and when I went over the side of the building, I couldn't see where my doors and windows had been drawn in there. So on this time, I learned my lesson, and I'm going to go in and color in these dark areas first, and then I can go over the whole thing with the graphite. The only thing that I have to be careful of is it will smear this dark area, but then I can always go back in and clean that up. So I have some areas here that I want to kind of clean up. Also, if you have something with a really dark outline, you might want to lift it a little bit, or if you have a lot of smudges that you think will be, I have a few smudges right here. I don't know how I got those, but if you think there's something that might be distracting later on, you can always clean that up. But chances are most of it's going to be covered with graphite anyway, so I don't think you need to worry too much about that. So I'm going to go in and do a couple of this door right here, and I'm just coloring it in with a dark 6B pencil. I notice there's a little bit of a highlight on the side here. And on this window, I can see a little bit of light coming through from the other side of the barn. This was in the old barn I think I mentioned on the other video that was in Montana when we were traveling a few years ago. It was just a cool barn, and of course we had to stop and take pictures. It's always a good idea, even if you've transferred, is to still go back to your original drawing. I already see that I need to adjust something that might not have transferred correctly, or that you missed the first time. And it's probably already time to put this under my hand here. So I'm just pushing really hard with one of my darkest pencils to get that nice dark value here. And I'm readjusting. I noticed that that's lower than that other window, so I'm fixing it. And then don't forget about your little blenders. I already can sort of smooth it out. This is a rolled paper blender. This one's a little different. I think this one's called the Tortillion, and it's more solid packed rolled paper. This one almost looks like you could peel it. And don't ever peel them. If you have a couple of them, like if you save one for, or even use a Q-tip for blending lighter values and then save some for darker values, and actually this can become a drawing tool. So I've lifted up some of that graphite, and I'm actually using it to color in some areas. You want to have a pencil sharpener handy. I have my electric sharpener, which I love, but any good pencil sharpener will help because sometimes you want a really fine point. Now up here, this is the sky coming through and some beams. I'm going to put this down. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in these beams here, or rafters of the old roof that had kind of fallen down. And this is going to be lighter, so I'm going to use the tortillon or tortilla or tortellinis as one of my sense of humor students had put down. And you know who you are. Okay, so you can start to see that I've been working on that part down there. And the nice thing about graphite is if you mess up a little bit, you can always erase. I chose to not do my initial drawing right on this good paper. This is like a plate or a vellum finish Bristol. Because I might do some erasing drawing and I might be drawing lines for perspective that I later on don't want to be in there. Always go in and do that blending. Okay, I'm going to do one last window here, and I'm going to leave a few little lights, sparkles of light coming through from the other side. And this is going to be a fence over here. And I can refer to the other, I have a different reference that shows the fence more from a different viewpoint. And these will be the old roof rafters from the roof that's blown off on the other side. So those will be coming through. And then I'm going to go ahead and put these windows too. So just so I don't lose them, because the drawing is kind of very light and it's easy to lose those. So the texture is going to be important on this old barn. The wood siding, the beat up things, and so on, and the shingles coming off a little bit. But the texture should be kind of the last thing. You should build up the volume of the building first with the darks and lights. Give it the base value, and then later on go in and add the texture. Either putting darks or lifting lights out, or maybe a combination of both. Okay, so I'm gonna, I've got some of the things that I thought I might lose in there first. Now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna use the tissue to create a dark value. I could also go in with something like a graphite stick and put the value on there and then blend it. But I think it's going to be even smoother and a little quicker to work this way. And because, I'm going to get a new tissue, because I want this to be pretty darn dark, I think I better use the graphite powder. And also, I don't think I need this anymore. I might just peel this off, because I think I pretty much know where my vanishing points are. Okay, So I'm going to dip it in that powder. It's really, really rich and dark. And I'm going to put it on my so-called palette paper. And then this whole face of this building is going to be darker. Now, if you have a building reference where it's not in this extreme of bright sunlight, you know, in the middle of the plains here on a sunny day, you still want to create some sense of dark and light just for drama. So invent your light source a little bit, and it doesn't have to be this dramatic, but at least have some place where you know the light source is. If it's coming from this way, then make this side of the building darker. If it's coming from this way, then this side of the building will be darker. And then don't forget you have this little, a lot of you have this little value finder. So I'm going to look at this side of the building here, and I'm going to say, which value does this resemble the most? Well, it's got some darks and lights, but it's pretty darn close to this number 9. So I've got a long way to go on this if I really want it to be a strong, strong value. So I might have to go in with a little coloring in with the graphite stick or with a pencil. So this is kind of a dark mid-value right now. And let's see what it actually is. It looks like about a number 6 or possibly even only a 5. So I want to keep going darker. Usually the biggest problem is not going too dark, but going not dark enough. And I'm glad I colored these in first, because it probably would have had them disappear. What would happen if I just went straight on this? Ah, yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, so let's say that's the best I can do with my graphite powder. I'm going to close this up so I don't knock it over. Now I'm going to go in and start to create some texture. This is oh, that's an 8B. I think that's a little too dark. And clean this up a little bit more. And remember we said there were some little sparkles of light in here, so that's where you could use your click eraser. Or this is where the electric eraser would work really well. I would do this at the very end though. Look at those little sparkles of light coming through that I can see in here. Okay. So I'm going to go in and start to use my pencil to show the siding. And this is a cast shadow under the building here. So that's going to be really dark. So I'm kind of coloring in a little bit more in the direction of the vanishing points, showing the siding. So I've got my base coat, but now here comes a little bit of texture and more dark value on top of that. And I'm following these lines that were going down to that vanishing point. And I'm not drawing them as perfect lines because you can see the wood is a little bit light and dark. And these are those rafters again. And the sky showing through. I'll smooth that out a little bit. So I would continue doing that on the whole side of the building, and that's starting to make it be darker also. Putting a little pressure on here. So I would take my time and do that over the whole face of the building. Then the other thing that I probably would want to do is go in and look and say, okay, there's some areas that are a little lighter. So I can use my click eraser, or even a really sharp pencil eraser, just on the end of the pencil that's not too old. So, or one of these. So you can start to get a dark and light kind of texture on the side of the building. Okay, so this is pretty dark now. Here's my kneaded eraser to clean up some of this down here. Now, this is not white, so I want to give this side of the building some value too. But I want to make sure that this side here, where it meets the corner, I'm using this fat graphite stick. They come in different widths. Now here's the edge of the building, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. So wherever it reaches the corner, that's where the value changes to a lighter value. And we've got just a little bit. I'm going to leave the roof fairly light. And it looks like the sky is darker than the roof. So I'm going to put a little value on the roof here, and then go in and start to show the little bit of the cracks in the rows of shingles that are all going to this vanishing point down here. So there's a little texture, and once it flattens here, and there's a nice cast shadow underneath this edge of the roof. So I want to show that the roof is made out of shingles, so it's a little bit bumpy on the edge. Notice that I'm working real general and starting to get more specific. So always work with general value of the building and kind of a generalized, and go from general to specific. So you wouldn't start with all these little details of shingles and so on or siding at the beginning. You start to build up. So see how that's making it look like it's kind of got a little bit of an overhang there? And there's a couple of shingles that are, or pieces of wood that have fallen off. And now I want to get, this is a cast shadow from the overhang of the roof. And then go in and do a little lifting. I can even use this kneaded eraser to do a little lifting on the side of the building here. Remember, the actual shingles themselves are following the curve of the roof. or the angle of the roof. So where the roof angles like this, the shingles go like that. Where it starts to angle like that, the shingles follow that. And here they're angling very flat. So I'm getting a little bit of a indication of the shingle texture. And I won't spend a lot of time doing that, but you can kind of see what I'm starting to do there. And I just love these click erasers. Start to use them to create your drawing, not just for fixing, it's not really for fixing mistakes, it's for lifting things out. Now we're starting to get a nice little sense of the texture of the building. And if this smudged a little bit, we can go back in and clean that up. If I wanted to show some grass growing here, I could do this. So maybe some bushes or grasses on the edge of this old building. I could use a lot of pressure on an eraser, or see how that gives it a little bit of a texture of the edge there. So what about the sky? Let's put a little bit of sky going right up to that roof. That'll make the roof appear whiter. Right now the roof looks dark compared to the white piece of paper. So I'm going to go in and, like I was showing earlier on that other drawing, I'm going to create a little sky and maybe lift out some clouds. So we're going to go right up to the edge here. My fingers wrapped around the tissue. The tissue's got like a wrinkle in it, so I probably shouldn't do that. And notice how I drew a border around my drawing first, so that I'm saving it. Take this off so I don't imprint this, so I don't compose all the way to the edge. Now I'm going to go in and find that line there, but I don't want to leave it as a line. I'm resting my hand here, even though I've already got stuff on my hand, and I'm going to kind of color lightly with this 6B. It's a woodless graphite, so this has no wood around it. And I'm coloring back and forth to create a pretty tight area. And just to smooth it out, I'll get my tortillon and go right up to the edge of the roof. And so what I want to show you here, and I'd take more time getting some nice, more even values, but do you see how that's making the roof appear to be a little bit lighter? And I could go in with my kneaded eraser. So this was a different viewpoint, but you can see how there could be clouds, or we could make some trees off in the distance. So there's clouds, or if we wanted to make darker areas, to make a tree. So kind of nice to have some kind of scenery around, or a landscape around your building. It's a little fence. So again, going right up to the edge, and that defines that light roof. So there's a tree back there, and maybe another one over here. There might be some grass or some kind of a road leading us up to this. Chances are, if it's an old barn out in the middle of nowhere, you're going to have some weeds or some dry grass of some kind. So we could spend some time doing that too. And then off in the distance, maybe some mountains. This was our horizon line right here, but there could be mountains going up higher off in the distance than the horizon line. And it's okay to have a few, you know, strokes of your pencil to show that it's a drawing. It doesn't have to look like a photograph, but you can have some expressive lines like Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. So I could leave some of this kind of loose, or some little squiggly lines to indicate tree foliage. But I'm going to be nice and clean when I get right up to the edge of that barn. And right up here, these little rafters sticking out are going to go right up to the edge of the barn to define that edge. I don't want to have an outline around it. I want to have a value against a value. And then I'll erase those lines I had, those guidelines in between the rafters to show how far out they went. Oh my goodness, I'm using a regular number 2 Ticonderoga pencil. Whatever works. Just smooth it out when you're done. Smooth it out. Always have something to smooth it out. You can even use one of these makeup sponges and, you know, do some blending with that. But Q-tips or tortillas work great. Okay, so you know, there's still a lot of work I could do on this before I would call it done. But just remember to keep in mind that everything's using those vanishing points. All the siding's going this way. All the roof shingles are going this way. What I might want to do here is make a really clean line where the sunlight's hitting the top of that roof. So I'm drawing with this click eraser. Okay, so now you're going to have a lot of time to do this before we meet again. So take your time and work a little bit every day. You don't need to rush, because we will meet again when I get back. And so take your time on this. putting a little sky holes between the leaves. Okay, that's fun. And look at my hands. Woohoo. All right, see you later. I can't stop. I just can't stop. So much fun.